Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley. I'm joined tonight, as always, as always at this stage, because it's nearly a weekly occurrence, even though Jason Keelan did a very good job of the last week's podcast. But we are joined by Liam White, an Offaly man, obviously, and the Dub's very own Seamus Brady from Moncleha to discuss this weekend's action in the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. Obviously, there's 3 finals down for decision in the hurling, as well as 4 Tailteann Cup games, and the LGFN Camogie Championships are in its early stage of the All-Ireland series as well. So first of all, Liam, it's boiling down to a few more games now. Like a few weeks ago, we were talking for 2 hours on end for games, and now, but as far as I can count it, there's 7 games this weekend across men's anyway. That's taking out the LGFN Camogie, obviously. So it's very little games, but as I've mentioned, Seamus and Aaron and yourself down through the years, more parts at this stage too.
Yeah, talking for 2 hours and losing our minds. That's what was happening with us anyway. Thanks for having me on again. Anyways, Matthew. It's the weekend we all love. It's a provincial final weekend and the Joe McDonough final, which would be very interesting too. The Tailteann Cup is starting to get, I suppose, a bit more interesting now because it's knockout and there's no more it's all jeopardy now. If you lose, you're gone. Good luck to you. Your season's over. And it's the best time of the year as well. I was going to say the weather's good. It's not been great the last week or two, but it's still sort of summer and we're still getting good matches and. Some terrific matches to look forward to this weekend. So, looking forward to get into it.
Exactly. So, and Seamus, as I mentioned to Liam, there are more important games in the next few weeks now. I think next weekend we'll have a full round of All-Ireland Football Championship group games. But after that, then, the games are probably shrinking in terms of the number of games. But the importance of the games is rising up.
Oh, for sure. That means that we're going to have to show what we can do in terms of analysis and breakdowns and tactical stuff and everything like that. And the podcasts do get a lot more, I would feel, a lot more research has to be done for it. I feel like when there's a ton of games, almost, you do your best to cover as much as you can. But now we're getting really into, breakdowns and analysis and everything like that. And we can also take what we've seen from previous games into it, because when the championship kicks off, there's a lot of unknowns, especially on the football side. You didn't know how serious teams were really taking the league, so you had to go in with a clean slate. Whereas I feel like, especially now, we have a better idea of where teams are at this season, and also we've a better idea of the overarching team of the year that you can't seem to predict anything, which this weekend preview. It's a lot more intimidating, lads, I have to say, than the previous years, because I think the previous years it's been fairly obvious who's been on it and who's been off it. Whereas a perfect example was last week, Mayo going away to Tyrone and beating them. I just never, ever would have saw that coming. Tyrone had just beaten Donegal away from home, and now they have a Mayo team who are definitely struggling at home. And the way that Mayo performed was superb, and the way that Tyrone performed was so flat. So there's a lot of things that are a bit unknown, but we know roughly who the main competitors will be, who the main contenders will be.
Exactly. So, and there'll be the All-Ireland Football Championship next weekend, but there are the 3 hurling games to look at. But one story in the week of Gaelic games this week that is grabbing the headlines, obviously, and I put the headline here as Brady, obviously. The headline this week, obviously, he's article in the Irish Independent. Would I call it an article? I'd call it a bit of hatred towards the Cork footballers, yearly hatred at this stage from Joe Brady, because I remember 2011 he said after Cork did beat down in the All-Ireland final, he said Cork beat a mediocre down team by a point in the All-Ireland final, Tyrone would have beaten them by 10, and that was disrespected.
That verbatim. That is unbelievable, off the dome.
Yeah, no, but it's in the memory, because that was just a nasty kind of go really from Brady as well. And the Cork man was actually beside him in the analysis of the Sunday game that night, Tony Davis as well. So it was an interesting kind of night. But in terms of this current Cork team, Cork obviously are after 2 defeats against Meath and Kerry, the All-Ireland Football Championship, and they move on to a game against Roscommon, which is a must-win for John Cleary's side. But then Joe Brady has his own take on the Irish Independent in his column. This is the first 2 paragraphs of it because they're the strongest quotes, let's be honest, and the more hateful quotes to the Cork footballers. Cork are permanent anti-climax, incapable of definitive contribution. They are indifferent to defeat. because they are deeply unserious. They play in a full knowledge that they're going to lose. They're a football team, merely a gather up of boys who want to train and talk out for the county. They should quit football altogether. It would be more honest than what they are doing. Liam, I've given my full reaction to this on my TikTok as well. It's got a good amount of views on it as well, and most people actually agree with me. Some disagree with me on Brady's opinion there. But what's your opinion on those quotes in particular from Joe?
Someone pissed in his cornflakes anyways, I can say that. He woke up in a very angry mood, whatever set him off anyway. Yeah, a bit strange. All right. Look, he has his own podcast where he does seem to go all in on a particular topic, whether it's to do with politics or whether it's to do with RTE or whether it's to do with the GEA. So, I suppose it's not that surprising from him that he has brought out an article like this, essentially attacking the entire county at this point, to be honest with you. To sort of sit there and say they're not a football team, merely a gather up of boys who want to train and talk out for the county, that's an outrageous comment, to be honest with you. These are, first of all, they're amateur players at the end of the day. I think people keep forgetting this. It's not like you're calling out say a Manchester United or an England rugby team when they were poor a couple of years ago. You're calling out a bunch of lads who the next morning would have had to go up and go teach a classroom or work for the Gardaí or go in and be insurance brokers or work on a farm the next morning. These are lads who are just normal people at the end of the day who are committing themselves to playing for their county for the love of it. And he says this as if Cork have won no games this year as well. Cork survived Division 2, which is very, very difficult to do. They pushed Kerry all the way in the Munster Championship. Okay, they didn't beat Meath, but Meath were in the Leinster final. Meath took down Dublin, which is a story in itself. Like what you said a few months ago, Seamus. Whoever does beat Dublin in the Leinster Championship will be the story of the year. And well, so far, really, it kind of is in a way. And are we forgetting that the weather was terrible that day as well in Navan as well? It looked awful on TV, so I can only imagine what it was like up there in person. And God forbid they didn't beat Kerry the second time, the one of the favourites for the All-Ireland, who have arguably one of the best footballers of all time in their team. So I don't know. It just seems very hateful. I don't know where he's going with the 2010 All-Ireland final. I remember I was 7 or 8 at the time watching it, and Cork deserved to win it. I was at the All-Ireland semi-final, the Down and Kildare one. Down were a good team, but they were beatable. Do you know what I mean? They weren't anything special. So I don't know. It just seems very hate-filled. It just feels very personal more than anything. It doesn't really feel like an article that's coming at them from a professional point of view. It just feels like he needs someone to give out about or someone to attack for absolutely no reason, and saying they should quit football altogether. It's I don't know. It's a ridiculous comment to be saying about any group of inter-county footballers. Really, is a shambles. Look, Cork football is not in the best place at the moment. I can agree with that, and there are things that they need to improve on. But to be sitting here saying they need to quit altogether, then Jesus, some of the smaller counties in the country may quit as well because they're not achieving much either. It's ridiculous what he's saying.
It is, and Seamus in particular as well. It's kind of a spit in the face to the players that put on the jersey, to the fans. I've been a passionate Cork football fan for most of my life, and he's calling us supporters idiots as well. With this sort of commentary in the Irish Independent, and it seems as if Cork football is an easy target in this. He did this. Let's be honest, it's hateful. And it's not great commentary around the Cork football team. But is it surprising that Brady's saying this thing? Probably not. Because remember in 21, after Mayo lost the All-Ireland final to Tyrone, he called Mayo the biggest time wasters in Gaelic games history. He comes out with these statements and you're just like, what are you saying? Do you actually still want to be relevant? And to be honest, Seamus, I do think it's a disrespect to the players. It's a disrespect to John Cleary. It's a disrespect to people that the media that cover Cork football on a yearly basis. The likes of Barry O'Mahony from the Echo, the likes of Finbar McCarthy from 96 FNC 103, the supporters that go to the games. It is hateful commentary, and it's just bang out of order, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've been obviously listening to everything that both of you have said, and you have hit the nail on the head with everything that you have said about this. Look, he's I don't know why. When you look at Brolly as well, not only does he always come out with a bit of a hot take every now and then, he always seems to have his favourites and his teams that he particularly likes to go in on. And Cork, Mayo, and ironically enough, Derry themselves sometimes, he always seems to go in on them. Like I can remember, I don't know if you remember this, lads, but I've watched that Chasing Sam documentary about 100 times, I have to be honest. The one about the 2010 All Ireland Football Championship. Do you remember by any chance when Brolly was talking about? So basically, Brolly was talking about the Ulster Football Championship, and he was saying how Tyrone had won it, and everybody lay down to them, and nobody had tested them. And then he somehow managed to segue the conversation to talk about Cork because he was saying uh, how Tyrone have a dominance in Ulster. Basically, this is in 2010. You're saying Tyrone are absolutely unchallenged in Ulster, and he goes, teams like Cork particularly haven't acknowledged that that's what's happened up here. Their big problem is the Kerry machine. And like I'll send you that clip after, but I literally I was like, how on earth has he managed to turn this into a swipe at Cork, talking about how Tyrone are winning Ulster championships? And I feel like as well that example that I was given to you off air about how when Johnny Cooper got his second yellow against Kerry for fouling David Clifford, and he was saying that it should have been a free out to Dublin. If you watch that coverage back, and the whole coverage is still on YouTube, he is like absolutely don't get me wrong, that Dublin team was the greatest team of all time, but he was basically just non-stop praising Jim Gavin, the management, the players, and he was saying that Kerry didn't really have a hope. And I've never, lads, have you ever really heard him go in on Dublin? Because there's been plenty of opportunities to go in on Dublin. Like 2021, we were all over the place. 22, we weren't great. Last year, we weren't great. We just lost in Leinster. And yet, I've never heard Brolly come out and have a go at us. There seems to be specific teams that he tends to go for all the time, and Cork are definitely one of them. Mayo are also one of them. And he seems to be quite critical of Derry as well. I just feel like as well with those instances, as Liam was saying, like they lost to Kerry. Like it's hardly like they went out and they lost to a bunch of lads straight out of the pub. Like they lost to one of the best teams in Ireland. They lost to a team that has generational talent in there, like Shawnee O'Shea, like David Clifford. And not only that, you can talk about Cork, and they've been in worse places. They've had, poor teams, I think, it's around 2019, 2020, when Cork were nearly being beaten by Waterford and everything. Yet they still always put it up to Kerry, and their heart was unquestioned. Like, no matter what situation they were in, no matter what situation Kerry were in, Cork always gave them a game. And let's not forget, Cork beat Kerry in 2020. When Kerry had just been in the All Ireland final the year previous, Cork were written off by everybody. Cork found a way to win. I just think in this situation with Brolly, plain and straightforward, I just think it's rage bait. I just think he knows exactly what he's doing. I think he's like he's our version of Stephen A. Smith. He's like he just throws shit out there. He knows that someone's gonna bite, and then now we're all talking about Joe Brolly. And as you said, Matthew, he says and does it so many times that by a month in the future, we'll all be talking about, oh, he's after having a go at this. But it is interesting to note, yeah, like the Donaghy quote there, he seems to kind of have it out for Kerry as well. Do you remember when he went at Spillane and he was saying, oh, every serious game Kerry have had, they've lost. And I was like,
Remember
okay,
when
so
he
it's
remember when he called Colin Cooper a choker?
choker, yeah. So, but then again, you go back to that red card that Cooper absolutely deserved in that 2019 final. If that had been, I really do question if that had been Tom O'Sullivan dragging down Con O'Callaghan, for example, would he have said that should have been a free out to Kerry? Just asking the question because I've never heard him have a go at Dublin. I've heard him have multiple goes at especially Kerry, Mayo, Cork. Like they've been the main three over the years that he has consistently had a go at. Tyrone, you would think because of the Sean Cavanagh rant, but if you actually look at it, he was a avid defender of Tyrone before that incident. He really defended their style of football and everything like that. With this situation, I do just think it's a bit of rage bait. I think he wants people to bite on it, and but the reality is you can't say things like that and not have people at least question why you said that. When you look at the commitment that those lads are putting in, when you look at the effort that those lads are putting in, when you look at how much Cork have improved over the last 2 years, they are heading in the right direction. They're moving a bit slower than I thought they would, but they are heading in the right direction. And I do think that they will get into Division 1 over the next 4 or 5 years. I don't think that's a question. I think they will get in. They have too much talent to not eventually make that breakthrough. But for Brawley to say that it is disrespectful to the players, they're hardly going out there wanting to lose. They put in a good effort against a really, really good team, and they came out the wrong side of it. And for him to come out and blast them like that, when, as Liam said, the amateur lads putting in a serious shift, yeah, bang out of order in my opinion. But I wonder, lads, because Derry played against Cork in the All Ireland final in '93. Like, is that at all tied to why he just seems to hate them? like, I don't really understand it.
There's no reason to, because Derry won that final.
Yeah.
Like,
Interesting one.
Genuinely don't know. But
do you know what I think it is? I think it's, but then it doesn't make sense for Kerry. I think, does he have a thing against teams who underachieve? Because if we're looking at this match, I'm sure even you could say it, that Cork team was worth more than that one All Ireland. That Cork team could have got 2 at least.
Yeah.
But then you look at Mayo, how much they've underachieved, and they're like the top 2 that he can't help but have a go at every year.
That's it. It is a worthy point, all right. Like, to be fair, and I'd say this forever being Gaelic Games history. I think Cork were deserving All Ireland champions in 2009, but Kerry won it. 2010 we won it. Yeah, and I think genuinely that team did underachieve a small bit, but for Brawley to say a year later that Tyrone would have beaten down in the final by 10 points was a quote with a lack of research as well, because let's remember in 2010, Tyrone lost to Dublin in the Galway quarter final, and then Dublin lost to Cork.
Yeah.
So I genuinely...
It's like even making an argument about like, oh, this year's Limerick team would beat the 2015 Kilkenny All-Ireland winning team. You're just like, because maybe that wasn't the strongest All-Ireland winning team, but you're like, yeah, and if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bike. Do you know, like it's a stupid argument. Like, you're like, if Tyrone this and if they played a year later, you're like, yeah, but they didn't play that year. So like, it's such a stupid, like, we all have teams we don't like. We all have clubs we don't like. We all have counties we don't like. But the level of hatred he's kind of writing about or spouting out is even, I don't know. It just screams small man syndrome.
No, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. And for Brawley as well, given that he was a former inter-county player and he would know how hard it is when people criticize you when you underperform, or because the other thing as well is a lot of people forget with that Derry team, it took them a long time to get out of Ulster when they had a lot of talent there, when they had the likes of Tony Scullion, when they had the likes of Anthony Tohill, and eventually they made the breakthrough in '93. But there was a lot of pressure on them to do that, and then they didn't get to an All-Ireland final post that year when they had a really, really good team. And just for him to go after players the way that he does sometimes, players who, as Liam said, are amateur players, they're putting in a hard shift, they give a ton back to the county. I do find it disrespectful, and I would find it very disrespectful if I was from Cork, because, as we said, we highlighted, he does have his favourites and he has his teams that he particularly likes to go at, but with this, with Brawley, there's always going to be a controversial statement. There's always going to be a hot take. It's just how much we choose to bite down on it. But when it's so personal the way he's made it, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, definitely is, and we will probably discuss the Cork footballers even more next week when they play Roscommon.
Actually, one more thing to insinuate that they're like basically taking the piss, like that they're just showing up just to meet up with the boys, like making out as if it's like a Sunday league type thing. I'm like, oh, come on, man. You're not even analysing now. You're just having a go at them. Like, if he came out and was like, this is why and pointed out all of the things that they're not doing well, then like if he had facts behind it. But this reminds me of like an Arsenal fan TV rant back in the day, like where they're just insulting people now at this stage. Like that's what it was akin to. I think that's disrespectful, and yeah, just think
You
he
say
kind of needs to whatever he has against Cork, Kerry. I think he just needs to let it go.
you say this to an Arsenal fan.
uh,
You're not wrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah. You see the clips where Toy is going after Fulham fans, going after Nottingham Forest fans for just singing Mull chants. But look, this isn't Arsenal fan TV. This is the Gaelic Statsman podcast. Anyway, we'll get on. We'll get on to the action now, and we'll get on to the Munster Senior Hurling Championship final, the much anticipated Munster Senior Hurling Championship final between Limerick and Cork. This is on Saturday. It shouldn't be 3 o'clock. It should be around 6. I'll change that in due course. But in terms of the game itself, Liam, Limerick won this game in the round robin stage 326 to 116. That was a bit of a beating for Cork today. But I discussed this with Aaron on Gaelic Games Fan TV last night, and the more I discussed it, the more I thought maybe that sort of game in the round robin would have benefited Cork than it more than it did with Limerick. Would you agree with that statement?
It's hard to know. Like, it's a huge weekend for both counties either way, because Cork, I feel, are going into this game in a weird sense, because after the hammering they took the last day and heading back to the Gaelic grounds, it's quite a daunting task, and you do hope from both a Cork and a neutrals perspective that we get a much closer encounter than the round robin game itself. Look, Cork simply in this game need to show that ruthless side that was present during the league and in patches that we've seen in the first half against Clare. But if we got the second half Clare, the Waterford performance, or like I said, the Limerick the last day, then it could get very ugly for them quite fast. But like, they are going into an encounter with a side which is aiming to land a 7th title in a row in Munster and are now rated, I think, now ahead of them in the ladder for All Ireland glory. And I suppose a team which is playing outstanding hurling at the minute and who have a ridiculously strong squad. Like, they were able to get players back the last day against Clare and give them minutes, which was crucial for them. Cork this time have to be better at many aspects of the game, like the last day, albeit they got the job done. I mean, you admitted yourself, Matthew, they were flat against Waterford. Like, that can't happen again. They were terrible in their marking against Limerick. They allowed Clare back into the game, and now they are deadly in front of goal, I will say that. And that is something that I think probably will be different. Like, at the end of the day, Cork have scored 10 goals in the championship this year in 4 games, which is a fantastic return. And the full forward line of Cork will be better here, you'd expect, than the last day, when they were really shut down at every given opportunity, bar the 1 or 2 times Horgan got in for a goal opportunity. They need someone to take care of Kyle Hayes at centre back. They need to limit the influences of both Adam English and Cian Lynch. I suppose they need to drown out now. I have a feeling that there might be more Cork fans at the game than there will be Limerick. I don't know why. For some reason, I feel like they could be with the ticket sales and there being more clubs in Cork than there is in Limerick. But they need to drown out any sort of noise that is there, because look, it is enemy territory they're going into essentially this weekend. And if they can push up on Limerick and as well realize the danger. I mean, the last day, the main target for them was the bull, Shane O'Brien. They worried so much about him, and rightfully so. He's a terrific full forward. But then you have to realize you've Aaron Gillan there, who's still probably arguably the best forward in the country. And like, yeah, it kind of allowed Gillan the last day to make the runs and judge every ball coming into him inch perfect. And I mean, if you're giving Gillan a chance to run at you 1-on-1, then 9 times out of 10, it's night, no matter who he's marking. So I suppose the main things for Cork this weekend is, well, first of all, they have to be hungrier than they were the last day, but they have to win their puck outs, and not just win them, but they have to use the ball well afterwards. Like, it's going to be huge to not only just win the puck out, but actually make good use of it to their advantage. Draw a foul or make a run at them, play the ball into the forward line as much as they can, and just even get 3 or 4 lads in around the Limerick defence, around Dan Morrissey or around Sean Finn if they are bundled up a bit. And yeah, they need to turn it into a bit of a ruthless battle, because otherwise Limerick will just walk past them, given the size of some of the players they have across the pitch.
Exactly. So a comment in here for Peter Griffin. Love the name, by the way. Family Guy fan here, so well done. But he's saying here, hard to know which Cork will show up. Limerick have Indian sign over them so far. Limerick will want to reassert their dominance. And that's it, Seamus, I suppose. And when you look at the shooting accuracy, this is one part where I disagree with you a small bit, Liam, in terms of Cork's attack. They're not firing this year. Like, you look at the games against Waterford and Limerick, it combined 28, I think, combined 28 wides, 11 wides against Limerick, 17 against Waterford. That's an average of 14 wides a game. Whereas you look at Limerick, 74% shot accuracy against Cork. They were absolutely superb that day. Is there an argument that Cork need to improve attack-wise? Because other than Patrick Organ and Brian Hayes, Cork have not hit the lights out of the forward line whatsoever, in my opinion, this season anyway.
Yeah, I feel like they haven't looked at the same level in terms of as well the pressure that they applied to teams. Like what Liam was talking about there is when Cork were playing last season, especially when they got the foot down, they really went for you. Like, I mean, you look at Tipperary that game last year at the end of the Munster Championship. Now I know Tip didn't put up much of a fight, but when Cork had their foot on them, like, they went for goals and they were ruthless. You look at Limerick in the first half of the Munster Championship game last season in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, when Cork had that foot down on them, they really went for the goals quick. You look at the amount of saves that Nicky Quaid pulled off in that first half. You look at Harnady's goal, Shane Barrett's goal. Like, they went to try and do maximum damage in the period that they were on top because they knew that Limerick were going to come back at them. I would agree with what you said, Matthew. Apart from, I think there's no way to spin it that there's anything positive to take from that Cork Limerick game the first time. I don't like that was a harrowing defeat, but there's one slight thing that you could say about that game is sometimes them games are just, you realize 15 minutes in, it just isn't your day. And you can almost write it off that because it was so bad, because you were so badly beaten, you can almost go, right, just forget about it. It is what it is. We can just prepare for the next one here. Because some of the best rivalries that we've seen in Gaelic games, time and time again, have had matches where one team has just blown the other one away. Like Dublin and Kerry is a prime example. Their football rivalry in the 70s is widely considered to be one of the greatest rivalries in the history of Gaelic games. 1978, Kerry blew Dublin away. But yet whenever they met up against each other again, Dublin were always considered to be able to beat Kerry because they had beaten them before. To say that Cork can't beat Limerick in this game is wrong. Cork can absolutely beat them. They beat them last year, and I think they're the most likely to beat them. But they have to look coldly at that game against Limerick, because the other thing is sometimes there's been a bit of a pattern with this Limerick team that sometimes it's like I'll give a funny analogy. Did you ever play Guitar Hero when you was younger, lads? And you could hit one note and then you get like the gold streak just comes on. It's like Limerick sometimes just get this golden wave of momentum where they just can't be stopped. Tipperary in the Munster final of 2021, where they came out in the second half and absolutely blew them away. Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final a couple of years ago. Cork in the All-Ireland final of 2021, sorry. They sometimes come out with just a momentum that it just absolutely blows teams away. And that first half against Cork was an example of that. They just came out on fire. They were not going to be stopped. Cork couldn't lay a glove on them. And I think almost in a way that a very narrow defeat would have taken more out of Cork going into the Waterford game than a game where they can just go, right, let's call a spade here. We're getting whooped. Let's just get through this and focus on the Waterford game. Whereas if they had lost that by a point, it might have been more devastating and might have, put them in worse shape heading into the Waterford game. But there's no way to look at it other than it was a bad day at the office, and they need to look at what went wrong. I agree with Liam. They need to make sure that they have someone earmarked to pick up Kyle Hayes, someone who can stop the dominance that he provides from the half-back line. Keane Lynch cannot be allowed to have the influence that he had the last day, the way that he was able to string things together. They need to just focus as well on just winning the individual matchups. You're right, a lot of hype was put into who's going to stop Shane O'Brien. Everybody needs to just focus on their own matchups. And then in the forward line, they need to look at what they did well last year against Limerick on both occasions, which is they didn't show them too much respect. They absolutely went for them as if they were not the 4 in a row All-Ireland champions. They went for them from the get-go. They went hard and early for goals. They put Limerick on the back foot, whereas this time Limerick put them on the back foot. This is what I would consider to be, do you know, with it's almost like you've got two heavyweight boxers, and it's like, who takes the first step back? And it's like Cork made Limerick take the first step back in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. They made Limerick take the first step back in the Munster game last year, whereas Cork took the first back step this time. And they need to not let that happen again.
That's it, and no doubt about it. And I suppose, Liam, as well, with Cork's injuries over the past few weeks, Joe Limerick, who was my man of the match personally against Waterford, out for this game. That's a huge loss in my opinion, because just as Joe was getting a bit of form going and a bit of consistency, he's now going to be a colossal miss. Niall O'Leary, I don't know what the situation is with him. Is he going to be out for this game or not? Look at Rob Downey as well, who had a poor game by his standards against Limerick, but I don't know, is he fully fit at all? Like, the question marks around the Cork backline in terms of injuries, number one, and in terms of matchups, number two. Who do you put on Aaron Gillane? Who do you put in Shane O'Brien? We put Sean O'Donoghue and Aaron Gillane over the last few years, and it hasn't worked. Albeit this time Sean has had probably one of his best years in a Cork jersey. So do you put him on Aaron Gillane this time? And hopefully it'll be a different result. Like there's a lot of decisions to be made out of this Cork defence against this Limerick team too.
Yeah, and like in particular, like you mentioned about Joe Limerick, like I completely agree. I thought he was fantastic against Waterford. I thought he actually did all right even against Limerick when he came on, to be honest with you. Probably one of the few shining lights to come out of the game to a degree. And yeah, he's a massive, massive miss. And look, O'Leary had a tough day the last day against Gillane, but he is generally a very, very solid cornerback to have. And look, the option is there to have a Sean O'Donoghue. Look, he was last year's captain, burst onto the scene in 2018. I can still remember his performance in the semi-final in 18. I thought he was savage. You know, he had a real solid game that day. Despite how good Gillane was that year, I still felt he was unbelievable that they one of Cork's best players on the pitch. So there is that choice. I think Robert Downey, if he was to be missing this, that's a massive, massive miss. Now, you do have the likes of Kieran Joyce who can go centre-back, and he's a solid option. If you had to even drop a Tim O'Mahony back for his height alone and his strength, then, you know, there's another solid option. And, you know, I know Mark Coleman maybe doesn't play there as often, but he could slot in there for a moment or two if he had to. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see if Cormac O'Brien there as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they have in the backs. But especially going up against a side like Limerick, to have injuries at the back, like whatever about say having injuries in the forward line, to have injuries in the back is terrible, to be honest with you. Not terrible, but it's just not ideal, you know, given the talent that they do possess in the forward line, and what they were able to do the last day against the large majority of the Cork defence. So yeah, and like you think straight away of Gearóid Hegarty, who Rob Downey was marking the last day. Like, he's probably one of the few players in the country who would be able to mark Hegarty because, like, due to his height and his strength and his ball playing ability. And he struggled on him, you know. So you're thinking, Jesus, who do you put on Gearóid Hegarty then? You know, that can match him in size and strength. Maybe a Kieran Joyce, but again, then you're leaving Cian Lynch possibly free. You're leaving Tom Morrissey. Let's not forget, had 2 points within 90 seconds the last day. You know, so who picks him up this time? You know, who makes sure he doesn't have time and space to, like, his casual usual score is him being about 5-6 yards away from his man and picking a spot, and it's almost like time slows down when he goes to take a shot as well, you know. So Cork really can't allow that to happen again. So, I mean, do you bring Micheál Mullins in this time? Do you bring him in even just to give them something different in defence as well, to be sort of like Mark Coleman, to be bombing up and down the wings as well? It's very interesting. I know the team's being announced tonight, so whoever Pat Ryan goes with and trusts this weekend, it's a big roll of the dice, whoever gets their opportunity. And I mean, they've got to make it count. It's the biggest game of the year so far. And to show that they've learned a lot from the last day, and to show that they can go toe-to-toe with this Limerick team, who, let's be honest, they could very, very easily meet again in in the All-Ireland final.
That's an interesting dynamic, Seamus, as well. Which would Cork fans actually? Well, I think I speak for every Cork fan in saying which would they rather, if they had the choice, win the Munster Championship or win the All Irelands. You take the second option all day, every day. There is a realistic chance that option is definitely going to be there, because I don't think this will be the last time that these two sides meet, especially with Clare gone out of the championship.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think as well, though, a lot of people, I've seen some people saying, like, oh, well, if they lose, this is kind of no big deal. This game will have no bearing on if they meet later on in the year. It will have no bearing whatsoever because the two teams will want. Yeah, but if you lose the battle, you're not guaranteed to win the war. Like, we've seen plenty of times where a team beats someone in a provincial final and then beats them in the All Ireland final anyway. And I really, really do believe, like Kilkenny and Galway is an example of the latter from the opposite, sorry, from 2012, where a team does beat someone in a provincial final, but then doesn't beat them in an All Ireland final. But 2015 then is another example of the actual status quo taking place. So there's been plenty of times where we've seen this. Limerick and Cork need to focus on the game ahead right now. You're right that they can't discount any player that's going in. They can't discount Aaron Galland. They can't discount Hegarty. They can't discount Lynch, because that game was one where Limerick made everyone, not just Cork, made everyone sit up and take notice and remember just how good they actually are. And Matthew, I'd be interested, as a Cork fan yourself, do you feel that you have made enough strides in that Waterford game? Have you seen enough in that Waterford game and since to tell you that you're going to be able to get a lot closer to them this time?
I'll be frankly honest with you both. No, I haven't. But that could
Okay.
change on Saturday. There's no doubt about that. But if you look at the stats from the Waterford game, they're very, very concerning. 17 wides. As I mentioned beforehand, 47 shots. We should have been hammering Waterford when looking at those stats, but we just didn't. Like, Waterford have more turnovers than us. Like, Waterford and Tipperary both have more turnovers than Cork in the Munster round robin, which is quite concerning, especially with Tipperary down to 14 men as well after Darren McCarthy sending off. So that sort of element of the game is going to be very, very concerning from a Cork point of view. Even look at, I'm just double checking the Clare game, because I definitely know we had less turnovers than Limerick, than Tipperary, and at Waterford as well. So yeah, it's a difficult one to comprehend, but I'm going to say I don't think we have made enough strides. I'm going to say Limerick will win this game by 4 or 5 points. But prediction time for both of you guys. Liam, what do you think?
Do I go with Cork because you and my girlfriend will be happy, or do I go with Limerick? I think Limerick will. I just think now, I said a few months back that I thought Limerick would win the group game, but I thought that Cork would win the Munster final. But then when you did see what happened in the round robin game, I thought, Jesus, right, okay. And when you list off the couple of injuries that Cork do have as well, it is a bit of a worrying sign. So, and like what Seamus said there, this could have absolutely no bearing in a couple of months' time if they meet in an All-Ireland final, because at the end of the day, an All-Ireland final is an All-Ireland final, and it's in Croke Park as well. Cork have experience of beating Limerick there. Limerick have experience beating Cork there, so it'd be a completely different match on the day. But I just think home advantage as well. Look, at the end of the day, it's home advantage for Limerick too. I just think they might have enough to get over the line. I think it'll be a lot closer than it was the last day. I think Cork, and especially Pat Ryan, won't want to see the same performance again, or even the same attitude from the players that he saw the last day. But I just think Limerick might just have enough. I think it will go to the wire though this time. I have a sneaky feeling. And Cork could absolutely win this. There's no question Cork could absolutely win this. They're probably the closest in the country, like you said, to knocking Limerick off their perch, but I'm going to sway to Limerick by 3 points.
What about you, Seamus? It is kind of weird to think of it as well that we're talking about Cork in bad form and all, but they are still considered one of the second best, probably the second best team in the country at this present moment in time. But are you going for a Limerick win like the both of us?
I think you have to, out of respect for what we saw from Limerick in this Munster Championship campaign, especially the game against Cork. They showed us the level that they're capable of, and I do think that if every team in the country plays 100% to the best of their ability, I think Limerick probably still are the best. I don't think anybody else will be able to get to that level. But Cork have been the most effective over the last 2 years at kind of neutralising some of their best threats and neutralising some of their best weapons. But Limerick were on song the last day, Cork weren't. And you mentioned about the Cork injuries that they had. But I do agree that, Cork definitely can beat Limerick. And I absolutely am confident in saying that it will not go the same way that it went last time. I don't think it's going to be another Hammond Cork. I'm not going to be cockhold. the way that they were last time. Cork are going to be dug in, ready for a battle, and they're going to bring it to Limerick this time. I expect a ferocious first 15 minutes. Like, if you're a fan of MMA, tune into the first 15 minutes of this, because I expect it to be kicking off all over the place.
A few
I
red
think
cards.
Cork, I think Cork
Flashpoints.
I think Cork will want to set down a marker. Absolutely, that, like, we are not afraid of this. We had a shite game the last day. We weren't on it at all, but we are not afraid of this. And they'll have to bring it to Limerick, because Limerick, the ball is very much in Cork's court, because Limerick absolutely dominated the last day. So it's all on Cork to step to Limerick this time, to prove that the last time out was just a once off and they'll be back. This is the stage to do it on. I predict a narrow Limerick win, but one where you're kind of buzzing to see them lock horns again.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Limerick to win this game as well, but it should be a very, very interesting game. Probably tighter than the last time, but we'll see what happens. The Leinster final, Kilkenny against Galway, another tight game incoming, I'm sure, as well, on Sunday at 4 p.m. from Croke Park, live on RT2. And Liam, no better man to go to, first of all. Galway, you have, I would say, ridiculed them all season long. They're going into this final now against Kilkenny in pretty good form. What's your thoughts?
Thanks for that. Texted you earlier. And
someone was giving you shit under my comments as well.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not even in the show. What the hell? Like, I was watching it and I was enjoying it. Next minute, I just get that. And I'm like, right, it's Galway with me. I will. I have a Galway jersey upstairs. I'll happily wear it. This is the thing. I don't hate Galway. I watched Galway win 2017 and I supported them. I watched them play the All-Ireland final last year and I was in Spain and I'll admit it, I had a Galway jersey on. I don't hate.
What's all this shite doing pods in other counties' jerseys? Matthew, you've done it as well. You've worn different jerseys. What's all this? You wouldn't catch me dead in the Kerry jersey. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but we've not won enough.
That's it. I wouldn't wear a Kerry jersey, no. But yeah, lads.
I wouldn't wear a Leash jersey.
I have a Wexford jersey right now. So
game's gone. The beautiful game's gone.
I have a Cork captive upstairs. Maybe I'll wear that next week.
I can't really talk.
Seamus was wearing a Cork captive on the Edge sports show.
That did happen. I will admit that. Dan looked at me and Dan was like, "Here, throw this on because people were going nuts if you throw it on." To be fair, he was right.
We just need Aaron to wear a Mayo jersey now, and we're sorted.
Oh my god!
Oh yes.
Yeah, Aaron's wear a Kildare jersey. You think would hurt him more?
Or Meath.
Don't give me a anyways, yeah. Look, I have been critical of them throughout the entire championship, and now they've gotten this far. And look, they absolutely do deserve. They absolutely have hurled well since I criticised them, really. And since that setback on the opening day, particularly, they've racked up massive score lines. Cottle Mannion has been a revelation, really, if we're going to be honest about it. Conor Whelan's been fantastic. I mean, TJ Brennan's been a standout player at wing back. I was really impressed with him, particularly. I saw him in Tullamore against us, and the way he was bombing up and down the half forward line. He scored 3 points as well. He was absolutely sensational that night. Probably arguably man of the match, to be honest with you. Keenan Fahy, Fintan Burke have been brilliant, and they were full value for reaching the final. Getting over Dublin, which I didn't expect them to do, to go to Parnell Park to score 29 points is quite a feat, to be honest with you. And as much as I have written them off this year and I've questioned if they'd get to this stage, I can hold my hands up and say I was wrong. And I think this proves more than anything how good of a coach Micheál Donoghue is, to be honest with you. He won them in All-Ireland in 2017, got them back to the final in 18, and I thought he did a good job in Dublin as well. And let's be honest, after the Tipperary game in the league, everyone was thinking this is going to be a long year for him, and he's turned it around massively. Now, look, the big challenge is much like Cork, to go and turn this around against Kilkenny, the best side in the province, albeit Kilkenny aren't on the level of a Limerick, so I feel it's not as daunting as Limerick, you'd feel. And this isn't the same Kilkenny as previous years, despite really getting through Leinster rather comfortably again. It's hard to really know where Kilkenny are at this moment in time. To be honest with you, I feel like this game will be much more of an indicator as to where they are going, I suppose. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they deploy TJ Reid. Will he be in the full forward line? Will he come out the field a bit? Is he going to dictate the play more, or are they going to leave him inside there to win high ball, which I mean, he's 37, 38, and he's still arguably one of the best in the country at winning a high ball. I mean, what was it, 12 against 15 when they played Tipperary. Kilkenny had 12 and he was still winning every ball in the air. I thought, right, this guy's a freak. But you wonder who goes to centre back, who picks up Mannion and Whelan. Did he need to? I do think as well they need to be better in defence. Let's be honest about it now. Yes, the Wexford game was a dead rubber, but if we're going to call one massive thing out about Kilkenny, even more so than maybe the strength and depth they have, 2 goals conceded against Antrim, 2 goals conceded against Offaly, 2 goals conceded against Wexford, 3 against Dublin when they fell asleep at the wheel. Like, they cannot switch off during this game because Galway do have the forwards like Mannion, Concannon, Burns, even a Tom Monaghan and a David Burke are midfielders who love to push up and knock over scores. That's going to be key too, so they cannot switch off for any given moment. But at the same time, Galway's defence can't either, because when you have Adrian Mullen, when you have John Donnelly, when you have Billy Ryan, who was he played the best game I've seen him ever play against Dublin there a couple of weeks ago in Nolan Park, and everyone knows about TJ Mossy Keown, they have the forwards to hurt you. So I think what's going to be a key battle is the midfield battle this weekend between whether it's Burke alongside either Monaghan or Fahy going up against Cian Kenny and Jordan Malloy, who I've been very, very impressed with so far. But yeah, it's a massive opportunity for both sides. And I think more than anything, a win and you're in the semi-finals of the All-Ireland. You're 70 minutes away from an All-Ireland decider. Otherwise, it's a quarter-final meeting with, if we're going to be realistic about it, Tipperary. Because I don't see either Laois or Kildare beating Tip, let's be frank and honest about it. But not that either team would fear Tip, and especially not Galway, considering they knocked them out 2 years ago. And I mean, Kilkenny will always raise their game for Tipperary. But just to have that chance to have a semi-final spot and avoid another clash beforehand, and then having to go and potentially face the Munster champions as well. I mean, if you're facing, if our predictions are going the way we expect them to, if you're going up against Limerick in an All-Ireland semi-final, we saw Galway in 22 and 23 just not able to get over the line, both in 22, which they probably could have and should have won, and in 23 when they started well and then got blown away. I don't think Galway will fancy another crack at Limerick, certainly not this year. And I'd say Kilkenny would prefer to meet them in an All-Ireland final. So, yeah, it's a huge, huge game for the two counties this weekend.
Huge game for the both counties, without a doubt. But look at stats in the Dublin-Galway game, Seamus, 67% accuracy for Galway in that game. And they seem to be going very, very well at this present moment in time. They were absolutely brilliant in front of the post against Antrim and against Wexford as well. But it was kind of a similar scenario before the Kilkenny and Dublin final last year. Dublin were in very, very good form going to Croke Park, and then Kilkenny blew them out of the water with 2 goals in the first few minutes of the first half, and that was game, set, and match. Is there an argument that kind of scenario will happen again?
No, I don't think it will happen again. I feel like there's some differences between... I feel like Dublin have had a mental psyche against beating Kilkenny for a long time now. Ever since we beat them in 2013 under Dalo, we've always... unfortunately come up short against them. And I feel like in a Leinster final, it had been such a long time since we had been to a Leinster hurling final. I think there was a lot of pressure on us. I think maybe we just got a little bit carried away with the moment, and then once we got the bad start, we found it very hard to arrest the tide. And I remember watching that day, and what was happening with us over and over again was Kilkenny had positioned, it was John Donnelly on one wing and Adrian Mullen on the other. And every ball that was being played into the full forward line from Dublin, Hugh Lawler and Mikey Butler was coming out with it. They were passing it across to Richie Reid, who was sweeping across the half-back line. He was pinging it out to Adrian Mullen or John Donnelly, and the two of them were just swinging it up and over the bar. It was like death by 1,000 cuts type. And they were outstanding that day. But there's one key thing that we need to take into account for this game, and that's Micheál Donoghue himself. He's returned to Galway, and the last Galway manager to get Galway to a Leinster title was Micheál Donoghue back in 2018, and they won back-to-back Leinsters, and his reign as Galway manager was synonymous with Galway collecting silverware. They won Leinster championships, they won the All-Ireland, they were superb, and they were, without question, in 2017. And you could argue 2018 as well. They were really, really close to retaining the All-Ireland. They were arguably the best in Ireland over that period. And the reality is since they kind of fell in 2019, they've never got back to that level, whether it was under Shane O'Neill, whether it was under Henry Shefflin. They've never got back to that level. And Donoghue coming back in, it's an entirely different team than the one that he had in his first term. Entirely different. That team was established the first time. This team very much isn't. It's a kind of balance that he has to strike between the talent that he still has from his first crop and the new talent coming along, the likes of Anthony Burns, the likes of TJ, the likes of Tom Monaghan. These lads are all new, and then he still has the old guard, the likes of the Burks, the likes of, Cathal Mannion, Conor Whelan. He needs to balance that all together. He's done good so far, and that game in Parnell Park would have been crucial for not just Galway's confidence, but Micheál Donoghue's confidence, to kind of exercise that ghost of 2019 almost, to go back to the same ground, to have a very similar contest where it was very, very even for long periods of the first half. But then Galway's performance in that third quarter was unbelievable. They just completely pulled away from Dublin, left Dublin far too much to do. However, the only thing that would worry me a little from a Galway perspective is the way that they let Dublin back into the game. Like they let Dublin back into the game the same way that Kilkenny let Dublin back into the game. So I will make one prediction. There will be a late goal in this game. That's my prediction. There will be a late goal. Last 5 minutes, someone's going to go. Mark my words.
Killian Buckley storms the field and gets breaks Galway heart.
Unexpected person in the matchday program. Killian Buckley.
Gets a chopper in.
Glass shatters. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Here comes the money.
Enough about dramatic entrances. Liam, who you think will win this final?
Why do I have a feeling Galway could do it? I don't. This is gonna. I said a few months back that this could come back and bite me. No. For my own sake, I'm gonna go Kilkenny. But I do think, like the Munster final, I think it will be a much closer contest. I don't think that was the Galway team we saw the first day can't show up again this time, and I don't think they will. So I'm gonna go Kilkenny by 1. I'm going to go Kilkenny by 1. But look, if Galway win, I'll absolutely wear the Galway jersey. I'm not going to say anymore because I could regret it later on. But look, if they win it, fair enough. And look, I'll be happy for them. I genuinely will be. It'll make the Leinster Championship much better as well if we've teams other than Kilkenny winning it the whole time.
Just to make it the decider, Seamus, I'm going to say Galway will win this game. I have a belief that Meath Donoghu will bring the Leinster title back to Galway again. So it's all up to you for the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Matthew. I really think Galway are going to do it. That's not even just to say it because I'd love to see Liam wear the Galway jersey. It's personally just, I actually do think that there's a couple of things. Number one, I don't think Kilkenny are as good as people think they are. I really think that if you get stuck into them, there's scores to be got there, and there's a potential win there for Galway. I think Donoghue as well will bring the belief of a manager who has gotten over the line in multiple Leinster finals and knows how to get the job done against Kilkenny on a big day. And I feel like, especially the last 2 years, Galway have been caught up in a lot of sideshows against Kilkenny. They were just unlucky that time with the Buckley goal. But the previous years were dominated with the whole Cody Shefflin fiasco, and just, off the field stuff became very, very public and kind of highlighted and messed with Galway's preparation going into the final, I've no doubt. This year, it's Donoghue, a familiar voice, a familiar face, bringing them into what is the familiar venue for them. And I do think they can get over the line. I really think they will. I think the form that Cathal Mannion is in, I think when you look at Kilkenny, they have more or less sleptwalked through the Leinster Championship. They had a very impressive performance against Galway on the opening day. Owen Cody, Mossy Keown doing a lot of damage there, getting the win. But from that point on, they've just kicked it into cruise control, and they haven't been really tested on any level. Like the Dublin got the 3 goals against them because Kilkenny, as Liam said, had completely fallen asleep behind the wheel because the game, they thought it was done. Like the Offaly game, the Wexford game, like again, they fell asleep behind the wheel and just cruised into, like, it's like they're on a bus and they're like, oh, and the final stop is the inevitable loss to Wexford on the last round of the Leinster Championship. But now we've got a Leinster final, and I really believe Galway have been tested more. They've had to go to the well more throughout this Leinster Championship, and I think when that game goes into the fire, which I think it will, I think Galway will be more ready for it, and I think Galway shaded.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Galway to win this final as well, but we'll see what happens. Will Liam wear the jersey? All remains to be seen, obviously. Speaking of Liam, he will actually clock off of the podcast right now. He is somewhere he needs to be. So thank you, Liam, for coming out to the podcast today. And hopefully we'll see you in a Galway jersey in the next episode.
Hopefully. If I just give my quick prediction for the Joe McDonough, I hope both teams lose, but I think Kildare is going to do it.
Lovely. Okay, thanks, Liam. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Have a good show.
So we will go on to the Joe McDonough Cup final now, and looking at that Joe McDonough Cup final, it is the first of a double header in Croke Park on Sunday. Kildare against Laois in Croke Park on Sunday at 1:45 p.m. on RT2. But before we look at stats and scores, Seamus, you watched both of these sides play against each other in O'Moore Park. You were commentating a clubber for this game. Think Kildare will do it again?
Well, from that game, Kildare were absolutely the better side. They outworked Laois, they outbattled Laois. The defence was absolutely superb throughout that game. Like, especially the spine of the team, the Reenborns, the Keenborns were absolutely superb that day. And going forward, the key thing is that they struck at the crucial times, particularly in the second half. David Qualter got that goal right on the resumption of the game. And then Jack Sheridan struck 2 more goals at crucial stages in the second half to get Kildare over the line. Like, it was a superb Kildare performance. In a way, it was a perfect away performance, because what Kildare did was they absolutely hustled around the middle. They made sure that no quality ball got into the Laois forward line. And James Duggan then was completely taken out of the game by Reenborn. Bear in mind, this is a James Duggan who'd come into that Joe McDonough game off the back of scoring 7 goals and 4 points in the first 3 games. He was as in form as a forward could be. And Reenborn just completely took him out of the game. Number 1, because of how good Reenborn is, but number 2, because of how much pressure was being applied to the ball that was getting played into him. The likes of Chad Dwyer, Patrick Purcell, they weren't getting a chance to pinpoint a pass in. They were having to just loop it over the shoulder in the general direction. And then going forward, the form of the likes of Qualter, who hit 113 the last day out, I think it was, against Down. Savage stuff. And the confidence that Kildare would have taken not only from that win against Laois away, but of the win against Carlow away. Like, that's 2 teams that everybody thought were going to be in the Joe McDonough final, and Kildare have completely upset the party. It was a massive win for them against Laois. They celebrated, rightly so. But how much this would mean to them to get over the line in this Joe McDonough final would be unparalleled. They're coming in against a Laois side who know what it takes to get over the line in the Joe McDonough Cup. They're playing against lads who have Joe McDonough medals, the likes of Paddy Purcell, the likes of Chad Dwyer, the likes of Dunphy. Like, they know how to get over the line in this game. And they have the experience on them as well. If they played in last year's final, they know how close they were. They've been able to take lessons on the day. But as Peter says, that Kildare are the form team. Do you go with form, or do you go with experience? Do you go with know-how, or do you go with a team that will probably go out and play with a bit of abandonment, go out and play with, lads, let's just go enjoy this. We can get over the line. We know we can. I'm shading it to Kildare. I really think that their defensive block, the Reenborn, the Keenborn, out of the spine of the defence, and then the forwards, the Jack Sheridans, the James Burkes, David Qualter, Cathal Dowling as well as superb. Jerry Keegan, I was very impressed with too, actually. I really, really think Kildare will have enough. I think they'll shade it, and it will be a massive day for Kildare early.
It probably will be if they do get over the line, no doubt about it. Peter, interesting comment in here. Shadowar leaving Laois camp, not in the best way to go into the final. I didn't know that either.
I did not know that.
So that's a quite interesting kind of angle going into this game.
Look that up now.
Exactly. But while Seamus is looking it up, we'll look at the journeys to the final and score. So we'll start off with Kildare because they finished top of the Joe McDonough group. So look at their journeys to the final here. They actually lost to Kerry on the first day out. I honestly don't know how that happened, considering Kerry actually went back down to the Christy Green Cup. They lost that game 117 to 19 points, but then won the remaining 4 games. They beat Westmeath 324 to 221, beat Carlow 223 to 120. beat Laois themselves, obviously 420 to 118, and beat Down 126 to 114. They've averaged a score 222 per game and conceded an average of 119. You look at their scores on the route to the final. David Qualters really excelled with 2 goals and 41 points. Jory Keegan with 17 points, 16 of those from play. Jack Sheridan with 4 goals and 3 points. 2 of those goals coming against Laois in that game where they scored 420. James Burke scoring 111. Cathal McCabe with 1-8. Dar Melville with 1-8 as well. Carl Dowling with 1-4. You can see Keane Bourne there with 5 points. Paul Dolan with 5 points, and a lot more scores added to the Kildare list. Look at Laois's journey to the final. They start off with a house on fire, obviously winning their first 3 games, but then in their last 2 games, yes, the Carlow game was exciting, but they didn't win that game. They didn't win their last 2 games, but won the first 3. They beat Westmeath 325 to 122. Battered Down 6 goals and 36 points to 112, and battered Kerry as well by 5 goals and 28 points to 121. Then that Kildare loss came 420 to 118, and then the game against Carlow, which sealed their place in the final, the draw 120 to 217. That was a draw on the end of it, which was enough for Laois. A last minute goal from either Mark Dowling or James Duggan. We never know. They're in the Joe McDonagh Cup final. They won't care. They've scored an average of 326 per game and conceded an average of 218 per game. And look at Laois's scores here. Look at the top of the list there. Tomas Keys with 1 goal and 43 points. James Duggan with 8 goals and 6 points. But then again, it depends on your perspective. Some people may think it's 7 goals and 6 points, depending on the Carlow goal. And that Mark Dowling has 1-2, but that's up for discussion. Ben Conroy with 3 goals and 5 points. And Seamus is checking that shot to wire thing. He has 3-5 in this campaign. So it's
confirmed.
It's confirmed he's out. And that's a big loss. He's got 3-5. He's their joint 3rd top scorer in that Joe McDonagh Cup campaign. Joe Quinlan with 13 points. David Dooley with 8 points. Aid Corby with 8. Paddy Purcell, Aaron Dunphy, Podge Delaney are all on the list as well as PJ Scully with 1-2. But looking at those stats there, Seamus, what is interesting about the results in particular for both sides, Laois have actually, yes, that was a very, very dramatic game against Carlow, but they haven't won their last 2 games. That's a cause for concern. Now, considering Sean Dwyer's out, that is a cause of concern for Laois.
I think what it did as well was, in theory as well, those games kind of exposed that the Joe McDonagh Cup was very 2-tiered this season. Like, I say that we'll look at that according to will you bring that comment up again there? Disagreement between Dwyer and the management after the last round match. I mean, something obviously happened because Cha was absolutely a starter for the Laois team, not only just a starter, but like a key operator. And, you know, when they were under the cosh against Kildare, Cha went in around the square. Like, definitely he's been a key operator for them, not just this season, but over the last few. He's an absolute leader, superb operator for them, and losing him ahead of the final is a massive, massive blow. Yeah, sorry, where were we? Have completely lost train of thought. What did you say to me before?
I was just saying that the last 2 games in particular for Laois, as well as Shadowers absentee, that's a big worry for Laois, considering the form at this present moment of time.
Yeah, I'm back with you. Yeah, like I was thinking, I was saying it to John O'Loughlin, who was on co-coms that day for Clubber, that we were saying, yes, you couldn't ignore the scores that Laois were putting up. They'd scored 14-89 going into that game. But it was a case of, okay, but you haven't been tested. Scores like that don't come around in games where you've been tested. They absolutely ran through the first 3 teams that they played against. They were absolutely superb and full value for those wins. But you were aware that they haven't ran into somebody who has not buckled. And Kildare, in the first 20 minutes, seriously showed how far they were willing to go in order to get over the line that day. They hassled, they harried every single pass that Laois tried to make in that first 20-25 minutes. They were superb. They hunted down in packs every single ball that Laois had. They absolutely snuffed out. Like, James Duggan was whipped off at half time. Like, that was Laois's most potent forward going into that game. They completely took him out of the game and forced Laois to go with a completely different strategy in the second half. Now, what we do have to acknowledge is the fight that Laois showed to get something from the Carlow game away from home when it was an all-in type game like that. I wouldn't look at that as a game that they didn't win. I would look at that as a game where they got what they needed to get. They got themselves into a Joe McDonagh Cup final, because Carlow are a team that came down from the Liam McCarthy Cup last season, a team that, I know we keep saying it, but a team that drew with Kilkenny, a team that pushed Dublin all the way, a team that beat Waterford in the league. We know what Carlow were capable of. And when Carlow had home advantage against Laois, who were fresh off the back of a Kildare defeat, I thought Carlow were going to beat them. I really, really did think Carlow would be too much for them. And for Laois to go there and to absolutely pull something out of the fire like that will give them huge confidence in their steeliness that they have going into this final and never say die attitude. But I really believe Kildare are just on the crest of a wave at the moment. I think that since that opening day stumble against Kerry where the late goal cost them, I think they've been untouchable. And you look at it as well, not only did they win against Laois, they won comfortably enough when it was all said and done. And I really think it's their time. I think they're going to get over the line.
I do think they'll get over the line as well. I'm going to go for Kildare to win this game. I believe in fairy tales, and this has been a brilliant season for Brian Dowling in terms of Kildare hurling. And just before we get on to the Camogie action, you look at Brian Dowling, the job he's done, coincidentally with the Kilkenny Camogie team, first of all, winning 2 All-Ireland senior titles in that job, going into this job with Kildare, to win their first ever Joe McDonagh Cup, get their first ever Joe McDonagh Cup win in a game against Westmeath this year, and to reach the final in the same season where they could very well win it. Kildare hurling has been on an upward trajectory. There's no doubt denying that. But the levels that he's brought these Kildare players up on, that can't be gone unnoticed, can't it?
No, he should be up for manager of the year. There's no question about it, because when you're talking about, as you were saying there, Kildare got their first win ever in the John McDonagh Cup. That could have been an opportunity for them to just go, look, if we stay up, lads, in the cup, we'll be happy out because we've managed to consolidate our position and we can build on next year. But to straight away be like, no, lads, we can go away to Carlow and beat them. And they did. We can go away to Laois and beat them. And they did. Now they're in a final. What do you think he's going to be saying to his players? Oh, isn't it great to be here? No way. They're coming to Croke Park to win this final. And nothing less than that will suffice. And I really believe the winning mentality that he's brought to the Kilkenny Camogie team has been echoed throughout this performances that we've seen from the Kildare team under his tenure. And I really, really do like the spine of the team that they have, the talent that they have throughout the team. I think they're going to be too much, and I think that they'll beat Laois.
Yeah, I think they'll beat Laois as well. And what a season Brian Dowling has had for Kildare. And that's gone without a doubt, no doubt about it, considering where Kildare were. Peter Griffin is saying here, Kildare to win by 8 to 10 points. Maybe not that much.
4.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 4 or 5, to be honest with you. I think it still will be a tight game. I know Shad Wire's out for Laois, but it's still going to be a tight enough game. So that is the hurling wrapped up. We'll look at the Camogie now before we get on to the Tailteann Cup and look at Group 1 of the Camogie. So Clare faced Limerick in Zimmer Biomet Park Kissogue. That's the name of the ground.
Oh, will you stop? Are they paying you to say that, Eddie?
Have to say it. I don't want to get sued, Seamus.
It's for the culture now. It's for the culture now.
Exactly, yeah. Anyway, these two sides play in Ennis on Saturday at 2 p.m. Clare against Limerick in Group 1. Wexford play against Tipperary in Chadwick's Wexford Park as well on Saturday at 4 p.m. At least I think it's Chadwick's Wexford Park at 4 p.m. I'll double check that. It is at Chadwick's Wexford Park, so lucky guess there. But for these two games, Wexford and Tipperary are both on 0 points. But the significance is, from a Wexford point of view, in this game against Tipperary, they've lost 2 games now against Clare and Limerick. If they lose this game, they've only Cork left to play in this group, in Group 1. And you could automatically say that's a loss. So, considering Cork's form at this present moment in time. So, Wexford lose this game at home, they could be in a relegation dogfight, considering there's no B teams in Camogie anymore. So, this is a huge game for Wexford, as is Limerick and Clare, because you look at Cork and Tipperary are probably the top 2 in this as the season goes on the group stage. Clare have won a game, Limerick have won a game, both against Wexford. You would imagine the winner of this game in particular, between Clare and Limerick, will get that 3rd spot and a progression into the All-Ireland quarterfinals in Camogie this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it that way. All right, first of all, the point that you made about the B teams being gone, I'm delighted that they were gone, because I think they were leading to a tiered of dominance. I remember there was one year where Cork and Galway were playing against each other in the final of both the intermediate and the senior, I mean, that was pretty ridiculous that was being allowed to happen. So I'm glad to see the back of that. But looking at the games this weekend, in the Camogie Championship, starting off 2 o'clock, Clare Limerick. Look, Limerick started off terribly with that defeat to Cork, but like realistically, I think everybody's going to lose to Cork that plays them this season. They're so far ahead of the pack. Whereas Clare started off with that really, really impressive win against Wexford. I would shade that one to Clare. Group 2's round 3, Dublin against Kilkenny. Look, the Leinster Championship game was worrying from a
It's
Dublin
Wexford against
perspective.
Tip.
Sorry. So no, but Dublin Kilkenny also.
But that's Group 2. That's Group 2.
Apologies. Yeah, looking at Wexford Tip first. Wexford losing to Clare the way they did was a bad start. And you look, as you said, at who they've yet to play. They've yet to play against Cork, and I don't care how well their forwards play in that game. You're not winning that one. Tipperary is going to be too much for them, though. I really believe that. Some of the injuries that they have, I heard that they've one injury tip that they've got, an inside forward. I could be completely messing this up, but I heard it's an inside forward that is out. But
For Tipperary, is it?
yeah, let me look this up. But
jeez, that's quite interesting.
someone said it at the Comortas Spell in the Gaelic. Someone said it to me that Tip were missing someone big.
Okay.
Now I'm not sure. Let me check.
But as you said there, like I listened to Joe Wade's interview from Oshie Nolan on the Limerick leader as well, and he was essentially saying this Clare Limerick game is a preliminary quarter-final, and it kind of has the feel of that, considering the winner of this game is most likely going to get third spot and the progression into the All-Ireland quarter-final. In terms of the two predictions there, I think Tip will beat Wexford, and Wexford are in serious relegation trouble there. I actually think Limerick will beat Clare. I do think Limerick will beat Clare. Limerick have some decent players for the Well Ashburn Cup team, so I'm going to go for Limerick to win that one. As you were saying, Seamus, who's the player?
Clodagh Quirk.
Okay.
Clodagh Quirk, experienced defender. She's out following a knee injury. So she did her ACL during Tip's semi-final defeat to Waterford. So she's out. She's a big loss. I got it wrong in terms of the position, but I did know that there was a big injury to the Tip team.
But Cotavan is out this year as well for some reason.
Cotavan is also not playing this season for whatever reason, and she's been in and out of the panel now, but whenever she's in, she's unbelievable for Tip. So losing her again is a massive blow to them. I still think they'll have enough to beat Wexford, and I'm sticking with my original pick. I think Clare will beat Limerick.
We'll have to see what happens in those games. Obviously, and moving on to Group 2, Seamus did mention this game is going on as well. Dublin against Kilkenny. This game is on in Parnell Park in Dublin. This game is on at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and Waterford against Derry is the other game on at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and that game is on in, well, it says in Scorpio to be confirmed. I'd imagine it'd be Dungarvan or somewhere for this game between Waterford and Derry, but we'd all probably have to agree on this. Waterford will beat Derry. Derry are relegated. Like, you look at the group they're in, Waterford, Dublin, Kilkenny and Galway, they were never going to get any points. And it's just unfortunate Derry were plonked into this group. Waterford are on the back of a historic win over Kilkenny last weekend. This Dublin and Kilkenny game though, Seamus, it's at home for Dublin. Kilkenny lost to Waterford last weekend. Dublin lost their first game to Galway as well. They look to have points on the board. But it's a crucial game for Kilkenny as well, because I know they were expected to beat Derry. They did that. But a loss against Waterford, you would think both sides, considering Dublin lost their first game and Kilkenny lost last week, is there pressure on both sides to get a result in this game this week?
Absolutely, because both of them have been slow out of the gate. And I also feel like they're an even matchup for each other. I know Kilkenny won the Leinster Championship and won that final very convincingly and beat Dublin on the way, but you have to take into account like that Leinster semi-final was played under a cloud of the whole Scots fiasco, and the teams were wearing the shorts in the warm-up and then told to get back into the Scots, and there's no doubt that would have taken a toll on the players in terms of their preparations on both sides. So, as you said it when we were talking about Limerick and Cork earlier, every game is different, every single tie is different. These two teams are evenly matched. Dublin beat them last season in the All-Ireland quarter-final. Kilkenny beat them in the Leinster Championship this season. So, both teams are well capable of beating each other. for Dublin, I would just look at it and think we need a little bit more firepower up front. We need a little bit more to make them nervous of us. And I think one of the biggest things that we did well in last year's last year's win over Kilkenny, was we got the maximum return out of the majority of our attacks. we got a fair number of goals, and for Kilkenny, they were struggling to then, get through our defence, which is always solid. You've got Emma O'Byrne there, fullback, who's a superb fullback. You've got Ashla Maher at 6, who's a fantastic player. And teams do find it difficult to break through our defence. Going forward, we don't really, though, have too much to make Kilkenny nervous. And I feel like if Dublin are going to win this game, we're going to need to score 3 goals, because we don't tend to score too many points if Ashla Maher isn't scoring them. So I do think Kilkenny will probably shade it. And then in the other game, I do believe Waterford will have too much for Derry. And unfortunately for Derry, I think it's just a little bit too soon in their development to get put into a group like this. They have some unbelievable players at their disposal in the county, players like Anya Barton and McAllister and everything like that. But I think this game is just, group, has just come way too early for them.
Yeah, it has, to be honest with you. And it's a difficult game for Derry. They have some superb players, like the likes of Orla Hall there as well in that team. But it's just too soon for that Derry team. Waterford will be comfortably. I think Kilkenny will beat Dublin as well. So that is the camogie wrapped up. The football, there is Tailteann Cup action. There's no All-Ireland Senior Football Championship action this weekend. We'll start off with the main preliminary quarterfinal. It's 4 games of the Tailteann Cup now, so no more roundups. We'll go into these games a bit more in depth now. Westmeath against Laois. This is on TG Cusack Park in Mullingar on Saturday at 5 p.m. This is live on GA+. This is quite an interesting game when you look at it in terms of the game itself between these two sides. And as Seamus will come back to us, I'm sure, as well. This is quite an interesting game considering these are two rivals. It's Midland rivalry between these two sides. Westmeath would have been disappointed after the results against Limerick last weekend in terms of losing by just a point. Laois obviously saved themselves with that win over Offaly last week to get onto 4 points and get this third place position. But this is two kind of favourites of the Tailteann Cup, Seamus, that might be going out, or one of them will be going out early. Westmeath would have been fancied by so many. Laois were the finalists last year. It's a difficult enough game to call. Is that fair to argue?
Yeah, it's a difficult game to call. Both sides, you're right, have had good records in the Tailteann Cup. Obviously, Westmeath, the inaugural winners, and Laois making it to the final last season and doing a lot to restore the pride, obviously, after that fiasco against Down the year previous, where they lost by a lot, and then they went back in there against Down and put up a hell of a fight. And that late Mark Barry goal made you think for a second that maybe it was on. They're two, local enough rivals. There's probably not much love between the two of them. It's going to be a fierce contest. And given the fact that both of them will be very much aware that if they get through this one, they have the credentials to go and win the whole thing. The only thing is, I've been more impressed by Westmeath throughout the entire season. The performances that they've put up in all the games, even the ones they've lost, have been massively impressive. They've never gone down without swinging, and Laois failed to get out of Division 3 while Westmeath were playing in Division 2, and I know that they're going to be playing in the same division next season, but I firmly believe that Westmeath's performances throughout the league campaign proved that they deserve to be in Division 2, proved that they could mix it with any one of them. I think the form of Luke Loughlin, you cannot ignore. His form has just been absolutely exceptional. Any 2-pointer frees, you'd fancy him to stick them over. And then other players, the likes of Ray Kennellan, have been absolutely fantastic. Sam McCartan. So I fancy Westmeath to get over the line in this one, and I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Westmeath to win this game as well and progress into the quarterfinals, where they will have an away tie. Look at this game, Offaly against New York. This is on Glennisco O'Connor Park in Tullamore. This is also on GA Plus on Saturday at 2 p.m. From an Offaly point of view, they're going okay. Obviously, losing to Laois by 2 points would have been a dampener last weekend at the group stage. For New York, it's the one team where you're like, it's hard to preview them because they played one game this year against Galway where they were never going to win that game. Let's be honest. They showed some bright spark, but it's hard to really judge New York and all this. So do you think it'll be a similar scenario to the Laois game last year where New York really put it up to them in the first half and then kind of fade away and Offaly get over the line in the end?
Yeah, look, it's a game where Offaly should win. Like, they definitely should win. It's very difficult to know what New York are going to be coming in at. because it's not a situation like it was in the Laurie Mar Cup where, you know, they play Monaghan and then 1 week later. So it's not like a situation where they played Monaghan in the semi-final and then 1 week later they're going into the final against Cavan, and you have a decent idea that, okay, well, they're probably going to have more or less the same team out again. We don't know if there's players in the backroom team that are gone, if there's people in the backroom team gone, if the same panel is going to be there, if players have gone back home and they're not involved this year. So it's very much an unknown for Offaly. They're not going to know how to go about this game. But don't forget, in the Tolchin Cup, they were caught completely cold by, as Griffin says there, could be a New York ambush. Because last year, Offaly were ambushed by London, let's not forget. So they have to make sure that they're on their A game here, because this is the type of game where Offaly could snuff this out in the first 20-25 minutes. If Offaly go in at half time 10-12 points ahead, then I feel like they've dealt with it. But if Offaly allow New York to go in at half time, 2 points ahead, then they've got a serious problem on their hands, because once an underdog fully realizes they can beat you, it becomes a whole other ball game. And New York have nothing to lose. All of the pressure is on Offaly in this one. So I think the first half of this game will be critical, but I think Offaly aren't a team to make a meal out of it like some other teams do. I think Offaly get over the line.
Yep, I think Offaly will win this game as well, and just eventually as well. Offaly will get over the line, in my opinion. Look at the next Tailteann Cups preliminary quarterfinal. This is on Sunday, 2 p.m. between Sligo and Carlow. This is on a Tubbercurry, not Markievicz Park, because of redevelopments in the ground there. So Sligo will play their home games at Tubbercurry this year.
I thought there was another sponsor. So
No.
let's feel like, oh, for the love of God.
Had enough of them. But in terms of this game, Seamus, Sligo, decent enough form. Obviously, losing to Kildare last week would have been a dampener, obviously, but won their first 2 games, and they still would be favourites for this competition. For me, I think Carlow missed their big opportunity last week. They were playing a side like Longford, who had nothing to play for, who were out of the Tailteann Cup already, and they lost to them. And if they actually beat Longford, they would have been in the the Tailteann Cup quarterfinals automatically, 1 game away from Croke Park. They've done well, Carlow, with the new management to Joe Murphy, but you have to feel they missed their chance last week, and Sligo will get over the line.
Yeah, I feel like, look, Carlow definitely have put up performances where they've surprised me over the last few weeks. They've beaten teams that I haven't expected them to beat. But I feel like if they didn't get over the line in that game against Longford, I cannot see them getting over the line away to Sligo. I think there's going to be too difficult, too much to ask. Sligo's calibre players that they have, the likes of the Niall Murphys, I just feel like they're going to have too much for them. And Sligo's capabilities in this cup, you have to look at last season, how close they pushed down in that semi-final. It's a very solid argument to make that if Sligo had got through that game, that they would have won the final. So don't write off Sligo winning this competition.
Absolutely not. And Sligo will be definitely one of the favourites to win it. The final Tailteann Cup preliminary quarterfinal is at Chadwick's Wexford Park on Sunday between Wexford and Antrim. This is on at 1 p.m. on Sunday. You would expect Wexford to get over the line. They're in decent enough form in this Tailteann Cup. Yes, a defeat for Fermanagh, but narrowly so last week. Antrim, obviously that big win over London, cemented their place in the preliminary quarterfinal for this week. Home advantage. Division 4 promotion already in the bag for Wexford as well. You would expect Wexford, John Hagerty's team, to get over the line this one.
Yeah, no, I think Wexford at home. You can't write off Antrim though. Andy McEntie's Antrim as well. They do have that kind of Carlow-esque streak where randomly they just pull out a result that will make you sit up and take notice, whether it's beating Cavan in Division 3 a couple of years ago, whether it's going away to Fermanagh and beating them. Like, they have capabilities to get a result that you didn't expect. But the one thing that John Hegarty has brought into Wexford, which they didn't have before him, was consistency. They're playing to more or less a 7, 8 out of 10 every week, whereas before they were playing 8 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. And they're more consistent. You more know what you're going to get from them every week. I think Antrim at home, I think that's a slam dunk win for Wexford.
Yeah, I'm going to say Wexford will win that game as well. So that's the Tailteann Cup preliminary quarterfinals wrapped up. The All-Ireland LGFA Championship is in its first week. It's senior level anyway in the first week, and all games are going to be seen on either TG4 YouTube or TG4 TV. Brilliant to see, obviously. Credit has to go to the boys
Can I just
at
say as well,
TG4.
all just from a TG4 perspective, all senior games in the LGFA Championship will be shown. All of them.
Brilliant. Absolutely outstanding. Really, really impressive. Just Gavin saying, commenting here, Antrim semi-finals 2 years ago, I suppose. Yeah, definitely so. But we will move on to the ladies football championship now, and we'll go group by group in this one. So we'll start off in group one. So Galway are facing Tipperary and Tuam. This is live at the TGR YouTube channel on Saturday at 2 p.m. And look at the groups now. I think it's Galway in a group with Tipperary in this championship as well. And this should be very, very a difficult enough game for Galway, considering Ashley Maloney's in decent form for Tipperary. But Galway, like I've said it before, I'll say it again, like in the league, they won 8 games out of 8. In the championship, they've won 3 games out of 3 as well. 11 games in a row they've won. They've been in absolutely incredible form, this Galway team. And Tipperary would probably be the latest team to be pushed to the sword by this Galway team.
Yeah, I strongly agree. I think you look at how certain teams lose the final, and sometimes when a team loses the final in a devastating way, it can be a massive setback for them. And we've seen examples like that in the past where Tyrone, for example, 2018 losing that final, 2019, 2020, like it took them 3 years to get back to the final. But this Galway team are giving an energy that of a team that have just learnt from last year's final defeat to Kerry, and they have not let it absolutely decimate them. You look at the players that they don't even have, the players that they've lost to Australia, like Anya McDonough and everything like that. Oh, cheers, Peter. I'm glad you enjoyed Comortas Pella. Yeah, it was unreal. Absolutely loved it. Like my first year being at the Comortas Pella, and just if you've never been, go. It's some amount of crack, and yeah, it was weird working at it because it's very, very easy to go off and have a pint if you want, but you have to stay in the zone and make sure that you're not missing anything. But I absolutely loved it, and I would recommend to anybody to go. But yeah, going back to this game, Galway, as I said, they've given off the energy of a team that have just been calculated about why they lost that final and taken a lot of learnings from it. They're captained by Kate Garrity at the back, who is absolutely superb. And then moving throughout the team, other key players like Alva Davern, like Olivia Diverley, and then up top in Roisin Leonard, they have one of the deadliest free takers around. And the reality is they just punished Cork in that league final for any mistake with usually a maximum penalty. And throughout the Connacht Championship, they were head and shoulders above Leitrim and Mayo. So yeah, Galway have been superb. They definitely are one of the best teams in the country, which is why it was definitely obvious that they shouldn't be in Division 2, but they were. And they've made a business out of getting out of there. And I personally consider them front runner contenders for the All Ireland, and I think they'll beat Tip.
Yeah, I think they'll be Tip as well. And just for context for our listeners, it's Donegal, the other team in the group with Galway and Tipperary. And you'd imagine Galway will top the group, Donegal and Tip will be battling out for second place and a place in the All-Ireland quarterfinals. Look at Group 2. This group has Kerry, Mayo and Cork in this group. The first game in this particular group on Saturday at 2 p.m. live on the TGR YouTube channel is Kerry against Mayo in Austin Sack Park in Tralee. You would expect nothing else than a Kerry win, in all honesty. Mayo are in terrible form at this present moment in time. Kerry are the All-Ireland champions. And yes, Waterford pushed them all the way. And if it wasn't for goals from Mary O'Connell and Daniel O'Leary in the last few minutes against Waterford, Kerry wouldn't have been Munster champions once again. So they were tested by that Waterford team. But let's be honest, Mayo are not up to the level this year. Kerry are still up to the level after winning the All-Ireland last year. Easy Kerry win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, look, the one thing that you can't deny about Kerry is they've handled shaky times so far. They've handled them really, really well. Like, this is a Kerry team that won the All Ireland, and then key players like Louise Verhertig, like Hannah O'Donoghue, like Emma Deneen, and now Kaylee Cronin are not going to be in the panel for the championship. And losing Kaylee Cronin, I would argue, was actually the biggest loss out of the bunch. She is absolutely, in my opinion, the best defender in Ireland. She's absolutely superb, and to lose her is critical. But Kerry are still just chugging away, like, which is unbelievable to see. Waterford pushed them super close though in that Munster final, and Kerry showed the grit that they have to get the last 2 scores, both goals, in order to pull themselves out of the fire, because Waterford really had them on the under the cosh. Yeah, for Kerry, I imagine this will be a relatively straightforward win. The new management in there that have replaced Declan Quill and God names,
And
but
Darragh Long.
and Darragh Long. Yes, thank you. But yeah, the new management in have done a superb job so far, winning that league title against a really, really good Armagh side, punishing them all the times, and they've been goal hungry this year, just like they were in that All Ireland final last year. They go for the jugular every time. I think they're going to try to get this game done quick and early in that first half, maybe take the foot off the gas and cruise control it to the end. And I think it will be a managed Kerry win.
Yeah, I think Kerry will get over the line in this game as
Just
well.
one
It'll be a
thing,
group.
we have to talk about this with Mayo as well. I think we should do a pod episode on him and sometime, but like, there's a really silent problem for the LGFA, which is the amount of girls going to Australia, because Mayo in particular have been decimated by the players going. You can't begrudge them. You would probably, like, I'd go myself, but like Mayo have about, I think it's 6 or 7 girls that are in Australia now who would walk into the team. Like the likes of Grace Kelly, Eileen Gilroy. Like they're not even just starters, they're their best players. And I think if they were all to come back, they'd be transformed. So it is something that, especially because the AFLW now have extended their calendar with the addition of a new team, and now it's crossing over more with the end of the LGFA season. It's going to need to be planned for, to be honest.
Exactly. So moving on to Group 3, and this group includes Meath, Armagh and Kildare. It's Meath against Armagh in the first game in this group. This is on Saturday at 3 p.m. live on TGR TV. This is on at Park Talton in Navan. Meath have Emma Duggan and Vicky Wall back in the team, which is a big boost to them, obviously. And they have some decent players in the Meath team, but they pushed Dublin all the way in that Leinster final in Croke Park as well. Armagh were absolutely excellent in that Ulster final against Donegal. Yes, granted, the opposition aren't the greatest at this present moment in time. Donegal are still a Division 2 team. But I think what's the question on everybody's lips is, when is Amy Mackin going to come back into this team? And Vicky Wall and Emma Duggan, how big they are to this Meath team later on in the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, I think everybody's keeping one eye on Amy Mackin and when she's going to be back, because in my opinion, Amy Mackin is very arguably the best footballer in the country. And I think if she comes back into the Armagh team, it makes such a difference, because you've seen it in last year's league final as well. That goal that she scored in the league final was a joke. It was just ridiculous. The spin and then to absolutely pinpoint it into the top corner off her left boot was unbelievable stuff. And for Armagh, she absolutely is a talisman up front when she's fit. To have Blaheen back fit, to have Caroline O'Hanlon fit, to have Aoife McCoy absolutely killing it there at centre forward, and Amy Mackin would be the final piece of the puzzle. And I really think if she's back fit and to keep everyone else around her fit, I think Armagh are my favourites to win the All Ireland, and I really, really believe that. I think they've been on the road for so long, and I feel like watching them in that Ulster final, there was a maturity about their performance. They put the game to bed. They didn't let Donegal get into it. The goals from Aoife McCoy came at perfect times, and I really, really strongly believe they're capable of going all the way. Yeah, for me, then on the other hand, much better performance in the Leinster final against Dublin than it's been in previous years. Like, especially last year's Leinster final, the game was over before it even began. Like, Dublin just blitzed them. Whereas this time, that game was right in the fire until the very end. And just on a side note, for Dublin, Lauren McGee is injured. Like, that's a massive blow to Dublin. But hopefully she has a speedy recovery. But Meath that day were absolutely superb. You know, deserved, you could argue, to potentially get over the line, but Dublin just managed to shade it. And I fancy Armagh in this one, but it's very, very even, and in my opinion, the tie of the weekend.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, to be honest, the next tie we're going to discuss, just for the record, I think Armagh will win that game as well in Navan this weekend. It will be a difficult group with Kildare to join the fray. But you said that'll be tie of the weekend. What about this one on Sunday on TGR TV? YouTube shouldn't be there. Sunday at 1:30, it's between Waterford and Dublin in Dungarvan GA Club. Waterford are going along very, very nicely at this present moment in time. Dublin won Leinster, obviously. But Waterford pushed Kerry not just once, not just twice, 3 times this year. They were very, very close to beating Kerry all 3 of them times. They have some excellent players on the team. The likes of, obviously, Kellyanne Hogan and Brie McMaw and Lauren McGregor. They have Karen McGrath. They have a serious panel at this present moment in time. can they break the glass ceiling and beat a top team like a Dublin side is right now?
Well, that's the next step for them to make, is to beat a team that's won the All Ireland in the last 3 or 4 years. And Dublin going down to Waterford is a perfect opportunity to do that, because Dublin are in a bit of a limbo now. Like they are off the back of Mick Bohan leaving. It's new management. There's a lot of players that, as I said, Lauren McGee isn't going to be there. There's other players who aren't around in the panel this year. We have players that have returned, the likes of Eilish O'Dowd has returned. She's been unbelievable. But it's a dangerous game, this, for Dublin. I don't like this game at all. I really think that we could be... I think we will lose. I really think Waterford are just... I think losing the Munster final the way that they did, conceding 2 late goals to Kerry, and when you see a scoreline like 2-6 to 10 points, you can't tell me that Kerry were the better team. Like that, Waterford were the better team that day. Waterford deserved to win that game. Kerry hit them with 2 sucker punches going down the home stretch. The Mary O'Connell goal was a very unlucky goal for Waterford to concede, and that's how they lost the game. I think if you play that game again 10 times, I think Waterford win it 7 times. I really believe that. So that would have hurt them that they didn't get over the line. I think they'd be desperate to put that to right this time. I think Waterford will do it. I think the Waterford by 2.
I'm going to go for Waterford to win this game as well. Just before we wrap up the senior grade as well, just to mention, Group 4 also includes Leitrim in this group. How do you think they'll get on, just as a side note? Coming up from intermediate, shock team from last year, how will they get on against Dublin and Waterford?
I think it's too difficult to group, man. I think it's, especially because whoever loses this will know that they need to beat Leitrim. I think they'll know that the last thing that Waterford and Dublin want is a 3-way split.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is a very, very difficult assignment for Leitrim in this LGFA Championship. Just to mention as well, in the lower tiers of Camogie and LGFA, starting off in Camogie, the Premier Junior Championship, there's 3 games this weekend. Roscommon take on Laois, Armagh take on Louth, and Tyrone take on Wicklow. And then in the ladies football lower tier competitions, all them Camogie games are on Saturday, by the way. On Saturday, in the LGFA Junior Championship, there's Carlow against London in Carlow. And then on Sunday, you have Junior Championship games between Sligo and Kilkenny. Sligo and Limerick are at home to Louth. And then in the Intermediate Championship, you have 4 games this weekend. Cavan at home to Wicklow. Fermanagh are welcoming Laois. Offaly are at home to Wexford, and Down are welcoming Tyrone. So that is all the games this weekend. We have just time for one more comment in here, and Brian has put in a load of comments right now, but we will focus on a few that is saying about the Joe Brady thing. He says, good evening, lads. Hope all is well. See the start of the podcast talking about Joe Brady's article in the Irish Independent. Cork is a very proud county, and while I've not seen his comments, they are highly insulting, disgusting, disrespectful, and highly inappropriate to Cork people and Cork players. 100% agree with you, Brian. As a Dub, I'm sorry for this. There are many things that would annoy me about watching my team. However, I would never, ever go personal with a team. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And that is the whole thing about Joe Brady, without a doubt. So that brings it into the podcast, everyone. Thanks for everybody that commented on the podcast. Thanks to Capture Legs for sponsoring today's show. Thanks to everybody that commented. So Brian O'Riordan, Gavin O'Reilly, and Peter Griffin that commented on the podcast tonight.
Mate,
the podcast.
It's got over an hour and a half. This is when delirium kicks in. Yeah, mate.
Sorry, Peter. Every time Peter Griffin comes up, that's anyway. Thanks to Seamus for coming on to today's podcast. Thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show. Thanks to everybody that viewed the podcast, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Ring the bell for any notifications on the next episode. And until next week, we'll see you then. Take care and enjoy the games at the weekend.